Hi, I'm Greg Levine, and this is the party line for June 24th, 2011. And last night I was fortunate enough to be at New York's Town Hall for the kickoff event for something called Rebuilding the American Dream, or the American Dream Movement, which is a movement to start a movement. I know that sounds critical. I mean it to be partially so, but not wholly so, and let me explain. The evening, which featured a speech by Van Jones and a musical performance by The Roots, was designed to first outline a lot of the problems, most specifically economic problems, economic justice problems that exist here in the United States today, and it was very good at doing that. It was very good at doing that, but it wasn't very good at the next step. It was an evening that was long on diagnosis and sort of short on prescription, and that is inherently the problem I see with this movement per se, and it's inherently the problem that they're going to have, which I appreciate and I want to acknowledge. It's not meant so much as a blame issue, as an acknowledgement of something that they and I think we all might have to overcome. First, on the diagnosis part of the evening, Van Jones laid out several lies that are being told about the economic state of the United States and the sort of common interest that we all have, and I thought he did a really great job at that. You can take a look online at the entire speech. I can't really do it justice. I always tip my hat to the incredible optimism and energy that Van Jones can bring to a speech. He really is special in that way. But he does talk first and foremost about this lie that the United States is broke, that America is broke. And he speaks specifically about a pie and saying that the American pie hasn't gotten smaller, just your slice. And I of course love that, because I have been talking about the American pie, shall we say, for a long time now. I always think of a pizza for some reason. I've probably spent too long in New York. Van put up a picture of an apple pie, which is probably more appropriate. But the idea being that and here's where I'll split a little bit from Van Jones, although it's not contradictory, is that prior to the age of Reagan, in America, we thought of ourselves, certainly from post-World War II through 1980-ish, as a land of plenty. We had abundant wealth, we had abundant resources, we had abundant energy, and the only thing that we argued about politically was how we divided that, who deserved the bounty of the land, who was entitled to it, how we should distribute it, who do we reward. After Reagan, the conversation changed. Suddenly, the pie was very finite and perhaps shrinking. And each and every American had to do their best to get their slice, because if they didn't, someone else was going to grab it from you. And it's really the sad victory of the Reagan years that has defined our national conversation ever since. We have limited resources, and we have to talk about how to divide them up, or so many people will go without. And that, of course, breeds fear, and it breeds more greed and more cynicism, and a general nervousness that makes the electorate scared and cynical. And of course, a scared, cynical electorate is a much more easily manipulated electorate, and that is not by accident. That is certainly the design of those who have foisted upon us this idea of the shrinking pie. Van Jones did a very good job of talking about how the pie is not shrinking. The pie has just been distributed so heavily to the upper echelons of our economic ladder that it feels to most of America like there's nothing left for them. Because, well, there is nothing left right now for them, but there's plenty here. And if we can reclaim the dialogue, reclaim the conversation to understand that America is a land of plenty, we can perhaps redistribute the wealth in a way that was far more equitable. And in fact, I will go so far as to say that the truly optimistic picture of America is one that says we have much to give and much to distribute. And the pessimism comes from Mr. Morning in America himself, Ronald Reagan, who told us that there isn't enough to go around. And I think people should keep that in mind. This is one of several points that Van Jones made in his attempt to lay out the case for a movement to establish economic justice in the United States. And again, applaud that because it is something we need. But it was very interesting to listen to some of the language that he used as he got past the sort of diagnosis and tried to transition into the what are we going to do next sort of phases of this. For instance, he said that in '08, we didn't vote, in '08 we did vote for peace and prosperity, not war and austerity. And I think that's absolutely true. We absolutely voted for that. Of course, the thing is who embodied the hopes of peace and prosperity and has now foisted upon the American people war and austerity. That would be the person who was never named last night, honestly, the President of the United States, Barack Obama. It was also mentioned by Van Jones at one point that we know that the movement has to come from everybody because we've tried looking for heroes and that didn't work, which I think is an even more pointed reference. But that's as far as it went. And this, of course, might partly be born from Van Jones' ties to the administration. He was briefly there and then thrown under the bus. It may be because he's working with a broad coalition. This is Move On, the AFL-CIO, Campaign for America's Future, Change.org. There are a lot of players here, so you have to be careful when you start pointing the finger of blame because you want to keep all these people involved. But it also, I think, points to a problem, which is that where do you go with this movement? Here's where we get to the short on prescription part. On July 5th, they're asking, the folks at Move On and the Rebuild the Dream movement are asking folks to submit their ideas on how to fix the economic situation in the United States. And then a week or so later, they're asking people to have meetups and town halls and house parties where they're all going to discuss it. And that's as far as this all went. And I guess you get the impression that, what's the movement going to be? Well, the movement's going to be you. It's up to you, America, me, America, to come up with what our movement is, which in theory is really nice. It's like all grassrootsy and everything. But in practice, some strategic outline, I think, needs to exist. And I'm not sure it does. I'm not sure if they're playing their cards close to the vest or they really don't know because they are in a bind where, is this a national play? Is this a local play? Is this a state play? I didn't get a chance to ask Van Jones that, but a compatriot of mine did, and honestly the answer was basically, we'll see. Which I guess we will, but I hope in his mind, in their minds, in the organizers of this movement's minds, they have something better than we'll see. Because as far as I can see, the national play is really difficult right now, and it was evidenced by the way the speech went last night. It's evidenced by a lot of what has happened in the last year or so. One need only take a look at the escalation in Afghanistan, or the moves to cut Medicare and Social Security, or the pathetic circus revolving around the raising of the debt ceiling, and you can see that at this point Washington is unresponsive to the broadly held desires of the American people. So we then look at state level plays, which are certainly more alive right now, although maybe no less depressing. I mean, get excited about the people-powered movement in Wisconsin, but you also have to acknowledge what's happening to spur that movement. Similar things happening in Florida, Ohio, New Jersey just this week. Rolled back pensions on state employees, health care contributions go up for state employees. Really actually ugly. And Democrats bought into that along with the Republicans and their very Republican governor, Chris Christie. So are states really a ripe opportunity for making this play? Either. I don't have this answer yet. I think that national is going to be tough. I think state is better. But I would like to think that all the folks who got behind the Rebuild the Dream movement have had this conversation for slightly longer than I'm having it with you right now. And of course, I encourage that conversation to go forward. We'll pick it up in the weeks to come, maybe on the party line.
Too much drama, with the police right behind you. Start waiting for it in the cycle reminder. Bye.